Hello and welcome to TNWKS, the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learnt something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zach.
Okay, it's okay everybody, it's okay. I'm Buzz.
I'm Jack. Don't panic.
And don't panic, that was a recording
Yes.
of the new government's early warning alert system.
Everything is fine, hopefully.
Yeah, we hope so.
That's what we're going to be talking about in this podcast. If you enjoy the Now We Know show podcast, support Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon or join our members on YouTube for early access, ad-free content and exclusive episodes.
So as you know, this week, guys, was the week where we had the new government's early warning alert system.
Yes.
Woke everybody up at
And
3 p.m.
You heard a little bit of it at
on
the
St.
beginning of the
George's
episode.
Day. Yeah, and we just previewed that alarm at the beginning of the episode. And that's what we're going to be talking about on this particular Preppers episode.
So before we get into that, it's time for, you guessed it, everyone's favourite
Word of the week.
Word of the week.
Word of the
week.
week.
Word of the week.
Word of the week.
Word of the week.
Word of the week. Word of the week. Word of the week.
Word of the week is all about old English words we don't use anymore. All you have to do is write down what you think it means in the comments. We will then reveal what it means at the end of the episode so you can find out if you got it right.
I don't think I've got a single one of these right yet.
No, I haven't. In
I'm
fact,
waiting.
I got one so wrong that I got slapped.
Oh my god.
So the word of the week this week
What is the word of the week, Zach?
is
Talk to HR about that.
nabble.
Nabble.
Yes.
Nabble.
Nabble. Nabble.
Nabble.
Nabble.
Yes.
It's almost nipple.
Your mind, Jack.
Honestly, this is supposed to be a fun PG podcast
Nipple.
talking about imminent disasters
So, yeah,
and early
demon
warning
to everybody.
systems, prepping,
And
most wholesome topics.
And you've got to talk about nipples.
A nipple is the
Well,
part
it
of
could be.
the human anatomy.
It could have got nipple rash.
Maybe it's
jogger's
maybe
nipple.
it could
Yeah.
be a
That-
form of
that's-
early warning system.
The nipple alarm.
The nipple alarm. They had a big nipple gun in Star Wars.
They did.
Nipple
Fire the
cannon.
giant boob nipple gun.
That was a reference
Right,
to
okay. Enough
Family
of the
Guy.
nipples now. Enough of the nipples, guys.
The word is nabble,
Nabble.
and we'll find out what nabble means at the end of the episode.
Okay, nabble. I don't know. It's something that happens after the fallout has gone.
All the nipples have been blown off.
And you've got to scramble around for some nabble. I don't know. Anyway, we're back. It's a Preppers podcast, and
I think this is Jack's first
I think
Preppers
it might be.
podcast.
Yes.
I can't remember.
normally
We've done so many of these episodes.
Normally it's Jack Harris.
Yeah, it's Prepper
Pepper
Jack.
Jack.
Your
Oh, okay.
normal Jack.
Your normal Jack.
Substitute Zach. Jack, I mean.
Zach.
What is it?
Jack.
We have such similar names.
Jack, Buzz.
Yeah,
There you go.
Another Jack.
Another Jack. And there's a Toby in there as well.
and Chaz.
And the Chaz, yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody else out there.
Thank you, everyone who's been on the Now We Know Show podcast so far.
And thank you to all those who will be on the podcast.
That's the attitude.
That's
Yes.
the attitude. Yeah. Anyway, the government's early warning alert system.
Yes, that went off on Sunday.
On St. George's Day, 3 p.m.
Well, mine went off at 2:59 p.m.
Right, we're talking about it. And the reason we're talking about it, you might think, well, hang on, this isn't new news, but it is important prepper news, because if you're a prepper, and obviously we try and keep our prepping away from the doomsday prepping, idea that people think of doomsday preppers and think of
Yeah, people actually want the world to end.
we are more practical preppers. Yeah, so you will prep, for example, if you are living in an area which is potentially highly at risk of flooding and things, you might want to have particular preps to help you in that situation.
Overcome adversity.
Yeah, or you might be in a situation where you live somewhere where in the summer you get regular wildfires and things like that, and you would prep accordingly. So prepping for things, and of course, as we've mentioned before on the podcast, a lot of people got caught out with the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's something that has now happened, could happen again, and of course all the shelves were stripped out the shops and people didn't have this and didn't have that.
And they had petrol.
So
Do you think there's been a sort of increase in awareness of prepping since the pandemic?
In a way, I'd like to think so, and I'd hope so, because as I've said again, I'm repeating myself, but in many countries, prepping is encouraged for the populace to make sure they have at least up to 2 months worth of preps in case there is a national emergency.
Yeah.
That it's not some kind of cookie, doomsday prepper thing to think about prepping, but unfortunately, as always, as you watch TV programs and things like that,
It's kind of been popularised in that sense.
and they kind of try and put this focus on somebody who calls themselves a prepper as being a little bit of a society outcast, a bit of a lives on the edge of society. Is a bit
Oh
of a,
no, you just described me.
Well, but the true nature of prepping is it's just a normal thing, and of course, if you are prepping because you think that they could be the potential of a natural disaster or economic collapse or anything, what better than to have an early warning system?
Yeah, precisely.
So any preppers should be basically welcoming this government early warning system with open arms and going, woohoo! This is
Great, we've got a warning. We haven't got a meteorite landing on our head tomorrow.
Don't get caught with your pants down.
Well, that's the thing. And in the past, we did have, when I was growing up in the 70s, we did have a government-run early warning system, which was to do with the Cold War, and that was obviously because of the threat of nuclear war.
Which we'll get onto.
We'll get onto that. We'll get onto that. But first, let's talk about the one that went off on Sunday.
Not the nuclear bomb.
Not the nuclear bomb. No, the early warning.
I wonder why you
system.
had 3 arms.
Yeah,
Well, we don't know this episode. By the time this episode comes out.
The one I was used to as a kid, we didn't have mobile phones, so I'll tell you about that later. But of course, this one, the majority of the populace has mobile phones, and so this alert system, that's the system it works on. It sends out an emergency alert to your mobile phones. And
It was kind of interesting because we kind of conducted our own little test on that, didn't we?
yes, we did, and in fact, we can listen to that a little bit later.
Yeah, it was on various devices. We kind of lined them up on a table and just to see what they were going to do.
What the spread was like.
Yeah.
Well, we had one mobile phone that was completely, switched on, full volume.
Just idle.
A tablet that has also got its own mobile data. We had one mobile phone which was completely switched off, which obviously for obvious reasons you think isn't going to do anything.
Yeah.
And then we had one mobile phone that was on complete mute.
Right.
I just wanted to see that, and
Yeah.
we recorded that, and we'll play the
we'll play
result.
that.
I'll tell you what. Why don't we just play the results right now?
Yes.
Okay, phone is going, tablet's going. Yes, the phone that is on mute is also ringing. I don't know if we can see this.
This is a test of emergency alerts, a new UK government service that will warn you if there's a life-threatening emergency nearby. In a real emergency, follow the instructions in the alert to keep yourself and others safe. Visit gov.uk/alerts for more information. This is a test. You do not need to take any action.
Well, that was very interesting. I believe that was the phone here, which actually did that speech notification. Only one of these devices did. I'm sure it was the phone and not tablet. The phone that was on mute certainly did hear an alarm on it, but there was no speech alert came out of that. This is a test of emergency alerts, a new UK government service that will warn you if there is a life-threatening emergency nearby. In a real emergency, follow the instructions in the alert to keep yourself and others safe. Visit gov.uk alerts for more information. This is a test. You do not need to take any action. So that was the test, and as you can see, the devices went off apart from the one that wasn't on, for obvious reasons, and the one that was on mute, it bypassed the mute.
I think my phone might have been on silent actually. So,
and that was one of the things that was in the media. They were concerned about people that might be in abusive relationships.
Yes.
Or people that have got a hidden phone, and they were worried that an emergency alert might set that phone off, and then that would alert their partner to the fact that they've got this hidden phone,
Yeah.
which is completely understandable. And
But
so,
if the meteorite's going to go off,
yeah, I know.
a
But
Yeah,
meteorite's
well,
going
we
to go
know-
off. I
we
mean,
know
a nuclear strike's going to
The
hit.
difference was we knew that this one was just a test.
Yeah.
This,
I think
this
that's
was
the
a
I
test.
suppose, yeah. Okay.
This was a test.
In that sense, yes.
But let's just look at that scenario. I can see how that would or could cause a big problem for an individual.
And the driving one as well. I heard a lot of people talk about
Or what, being-
whilst people were
being
driving.
distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't actually think of that. Yeah.
But then again, if now people are aware of it, then if suddenly an alarm goes off, maybe
Yeah.
they wouldn't be as shocked as they would. But going back to that one, if you've got a hidden phone, obviously we proved that if your phone is on mute, then you still
It would have gone off.
It would have gone off. I have heard though that although I put that phone on mute, I heard that obviously if you put it onto plane mode,
Airplane mode. Yeah.
airplane mode, then that cuts the signal out.
Right.
Okay,
That would make sense. Yeah.
that would make sense. So then you wouldn't get that alarm signal. So if anybody's listening, there's a tip: put it on airplane mode.
Actually,
However,
don't put it on airplane mode just in case there's an emergency.
well, yeah, but however, I'm kind of thinking about this. Maybe we could discuss this. If you had an abusive partner and you guys, you'd hidden a phone, would you leave that phone switched on?
Yeah, that's a good point.
'Cause
Yeah,
my point is if I was
Interesting.
hiding a phone, I kind of wouldn't have it turned on
All the time.
all the
Yeah.
time. So the only time I would,
I suppose we can't.
Just in
yeah,
case
I suppose-
something like that happened.
I suppose it's just the hypothetical question, wasn't it? I think.
yeah, I
that was
know,
being posed
I
by the
know,
media.
I can really understand that, and I totally sympathise with anybody out there that might find themselves in that situation. But I was just trying to think about that logically.
Yeah.
Would I actually have that phone on? I mean, you certainly wouldn't have that phone on and have it so it would be, it would start ringing. You'd either have it on and have it on mute. But the thing is, if you had a phone, would you be and you're hiding a phone? Would you expect somebody to ring you on that phone, or are you using that phone simply because you've got a phone that you know your partner can't check?
Yeah.
Because they might be one of those people that regularly force you to give them your phone to check that, if they're that paranoid. So you've got this phone where you can contact people on it, but would you expect people to ring you on that phone? So if you're not asking people to ring you on it because you don't want it to be discovered, you're going to probably keep the phone switched off
Yeah.
anyway. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Maybe
But
going back to
I
the
feel-
emergency alert.
I feel sorry for anyone that was in the cinema.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. But anyway, so that's covered that aspect. I mean, that test I think was a valid one that we.
Yeah.
we
What
recorded.
did we think about it? Did
the
we think it was a good thing?
Well, I personally think yes.
Yeah.
Perspective. I'm going to reflect one of the. I asked people to give me feedback immediately after we'd had that test.
I definitely think that it's better to have it than not.
Yeah, well, that was exactly it.
Yeah.
Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Okay, so
I think that was a quote from Aliens versus Predator.
True Romance used it first.
well, it's a good old preppers quote that goes back for many
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 years.
years. Like 2 is 1 and 1 is
It
none.
was written on the.
It was in stone somewhere on a tablet.
It was foretold to the preppers of old.
It was the 11th commandment that unfortunately got dropped on the way down. So anyway, so for the best part, personally, I think yes, I've got no personal reason to think that it isn't anything but a good thing. However, I'm not the only person with an opinion, and a lot of people that gave me feedback gave me kind of reasonable feedback, some strange feedback, and then there was some that was maybe more on the extreme end. Everybody's allowed to have an opinion,
Of course.
So no names, no pack drill on this one. But I just thought I'd go through it because obviously it's a relatively new thing.
It'd be interesting to hear this.
So I had over 40 comments about the
That's a
emergency
lot.
broadcast
Yeah.
system, and so a lot of people came back with that. It's better to have it. Okay, I had one person that came back to me once they'd received that alert, and once the alert was received, it actually gave you the option whether you wanted to turn it on or off.
Right.
Whether you wanted to receive them again in the future, and they liked the idea that they actually gave you that option.
I don't think mine had that option. but,
Well, do you know, it's interesting you say that, Jack, because in that test that we recorded, it was only one phone that actually
said
spoke.
things.
Now,
oh, okay.
when yours went off, was it just the alarm?
It was just the high pitched sort of alarm sound. Yeah.
And then with the text written on the screen?
Yes, with the sort of yellow
That's
warning
what
sign.
happened on all the devices we had on, did the alarm and the text. One device actually read out
Yeah, I
immediately
think that was
started to...
my
That was your phone?
My phone, yeah.
Started to read out the whole thing for you.
Was it kind of like a pre-recorded voice, or was it like an AI voice? Sort
Well,
of
you know,
text to speech.
obviously you've heard it in the test, so I assume that it was
I think it was kind of an automated voice.
automated voice.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, which was very interesting. But again, the feedback was that somebody was pleased that it gave you the option, if you didn't know you could turn it off, that it gave you the option to turn it off. Because I know that before the emergency alert system activated, some people had already taken the option of going into their settings on their devices and disabling it.
Yeah.
So they never got it anyway because they turned it off.
I think on iPhone there is actually now a setting like purely just for the emergency alarm. There's kind of a switch whether you want it on or off.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go into your settings and quite literally turn it on or off. So I'm not sure about other sort of
User's
making-
preference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
think
it's just the same-
most devices under notifications have the facility to turn it
Yeah.
off. So if you didn't want to have this emergency alert system ringing on your phone, you can choose to disable it. And but on the opposite end, I know that some people didn't receive it, and one bit of feedback that came through saying that it was a good idea also said that they were concerned because at the time they were with their friends and some of the friends didn't even receive it. It didn't come through on their phones.
I heard that, yeah.
I've looked into that and I don't quite know exactly whether it's to do with the operating system you're on, if you've got an older device,
Yeah.
whether that had something to do with it. But at the time it did seem that network, is it 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, the mobile network 3, that didn't receive it for some reason. But just to put that into perspective, this was a government test,
Yeah.
and so the data they get fed back from the test,
They can improve it.
that's the whole point. They can then see why that didn't happen and then rectify it.
So I've just pulled up on my phone the settings.
Okay, and yours is an
I'm
iPhone.
an iPhone, yeah. And I've got the option emergency alerts, so I can turn on extreme alerts or severe alerts.
What's the difference?
I don't know. That's the first time I've seen it.
So
I know you can see they're both on.
you're
so-
going to keep those on so you can find out what the difference is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully I won't ever know.
Yeah, hopefully you wouldn't need to know.
Well, that's the other thing about the new alert system is that whether you turn it off or don't turn it off, you may well never actually ever hear it ever again anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the point.
The point is, it's there to tell you if there's something wrong that's about
Yeah.
to happen.
And the first things
Yeah.
everyone would say if something really bad happened and no one knew about it, first thing people would say was, "Why wasn't I
Why
told?"
wasn't I told? Exactly. And but I think the one of the big differences between this new alert system and what I was used to when I was a kid, but again that was mainly to do with the Cold War and the potential of a nuclear strike, is this is targeted.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you had a question about that.
I was going to ask if it was like regional or is it just like a blanket notification that's sent to the entire country,
Now that's the thing. If there was a national emergency,
such as nuclear apocalypse.
yeah, okay, let's go to
Giant tsunami.
that. You know, something. Meteorite. You keep mentioning meteorites.
Yeah.
Heading
Meteorite is
straight
heading
for
towards
Halsey.
Halsey in Bedfordshire. National, you would go national, but to answer your question, it is both national and regional. So
Okay.
if you were in, and again, this is some of the feedback that I had was about, natural disasters. We hardly have any natural disasters in the UK, so what's the point? I'll come back to that one again in a minute. But it's not, if you go onto the government website and look at the alert system details, it's also for things such as terrorist attacks, which aren't natural disasters. So if you were in a major city and there was suddenly a bomb scare, they can hit all the mobile towers in that area to notify everybody's phones to stay indoors.
Quietly
get
and
out of-
calmly
Yeah.
get out of the area.
That was going to be
area.
one of my questions was, does it sort of cover terrorist
So-
attacks and things?
So if there was a threat or terrorist attack or something happened, and unfortunately it's fair to say they do and have,
Yeah.
and probably will happen again.
Unfortunately.
But it means that if something has happened in central London, we wouldn't know about it here until we heard it on the news.
Because
Yeah.
we're far away enough
Yeah.
that it's not going to affect us.
The
Yeah.
alert system isn't going to go
Like
off.
if there was like
Yeah.
a fire or something that was like a couple of counties over from us,
Yeah.
then we wouldn't be notified about that
Probably
because
I know.
it wouldn't have any bearing on us at all.
Exactly. So
just-
that's how it works, which I like.
Yeah.
That is a really good thing that they can be focused on that.
I just had a thought when you're discussing that maybe they could implement in the future maybe something that can alert, like if you have a group of people in your phone, sort of like family members, if
Yep.
they're in London and we're over here and something bad happens, we could get some kind of mini alert to say that a family member's alert system has triggered or something.
Yeah, but then it comes into that kind of idea of you don't want people keeping tabs on your private things on your phone.
No, I think, well, that's...
I kind of see what you're saying, but for example, say that you were down in London.
You'd have to be... I'm not talking like anyone.
No.
I'm talking like you could add people that your close family members, like a tracking thing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we have a tracking
Exactly.
thing on our devices.
But I know a lot of people can get a bit kind of up in the air about tracking things.
Well, if you've got a young teenager or something who's going into London on their own
Yeah.
or whatever, or with a group of mates, and then something bad happens, you
Yeah,
kind of
but
want to know about it.
People get really suspicious about being tracked.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way: if you've got a mobile phone, you're being tracked.
Yeah,
Google
obviously.
tracks you. Everybody tracks you. They're not meant to tell anybody where you are, but you can go onto Google and you can activate to allow somebody else to know where you are if you want
Yeah.
to, can't you?
You
Google
can turn on
tracking.
your location and stuff.
Exactly. So, but if somebody is, we had a friend of the family who's another member of their family went missing, and so they were put out on social media. You know, have you seen them? Please, if you see them, let us know. Let us know. Let us know. And I messaged them and said, you know, with the police, like if this person's got their phone on,
Yeah.
the police should be able to just track and locate where the phone is. And true enough, the police had tried that, but the phone was off, so they couldn't do that. But that everybody can be tracked at any time under the right situation if needs be.
Sounds very sinister.
Trying not to.
If you want to be off grid, you need to get your mobile phone, stamp on it, throw it away. You know?
Get rid of it.
You know,
If you don't want to be tracked, don't have a mobile phone.
you're going to be. It's like people that are on preppers' Facebook pages, you know, and they're saying, "Oh, this is all top secret. You know, we don't want to be known." You're on Facebook. Everybody on Facebook, all your details are running through Facebook.
Yeah.
Big Brother knows about you guys.
IP addresses, everything.
Oh no, don't bring back the big them.
The big them,
They.
the big them, they. So anyway, moving off to the feedback. So again, one person said they were shocked to find that there was nothing like this that was already in use.
Yeah,
you know?
makes sense, yeah.
So for the majority, everybody had a positive feedback on it.
Right.
Okay, so that's good. So again, totally 100% for it. And a friend of mine in Luxembourg came back and said that Luxembourg has a similar SMS alert system, and they've been very, very useful when they've had major disturbances since they've been living in Luxembourg. Luxembourg's a very small country, but they've had wildfires and floods and things, and they've had the alerts, and they found them to be very useful. So, you know, and I know, I think a place like Holland use it, and in the States, some of the different areas in the States, like Tornado Alley and places, have them if there's tornadoes coming. So,
Again, that makes sense.
you know, so overall, great. But then you have the darker side.
The dark side.
The darker side. Those people that go totally distrusting. And I had feedback such as, I'm disconnecting it off my phone because I don't trust the government.
Right.
Right.
I think the government probably know more about you than you think.
What that means, I don't trust the government to tell me that there's a wildfire
Yeah.
Or a meteor.
or you and your meeting, or a terrorist attack happening in my area. I don't trust the government, so I'm going to turn it off.
It's also
I
it's
don't quite understand that one, but there you go.
especially for this test, it's very much a like nationwide thing. So the government aren't going to be tracking one person specifically. It's going to everybody. It's not going to this one person specifically.
Warning! A meteor's heading for you.
And it's not saying reply with your bank details and things. It's just saying we're alerting you that something maybe
might affect you.
Yeah.
And there's another thing as well, because we call it, obviously it's the government emergency alert system, that somebody somewhere in an office, wherever, in the control centre is probably the best way, somebody has to say, we have a potential emergency here, bang out this alert to this area or nationwide or wherever it is. And then that just literally goes to all mobile companies that then blanket send that message out. And just as much as if it goes through to your phone because it's on, there's obviously a record of all the phones it should have gone to that are all turned off.
Yeah.
So even if you've turned it off, it's like, they've turned it off. They've turned it off.
Yeah.
Reverse engineering.
Reverse engineering. But I need at this point to point out, okay, this I don't trust the government. It's also used equally available and used by the actual emergency services themselves.
Yeah.
It's not some clandestine government thing that suddenly they're going to be sending you subliminal messages in the middle of the night while you're sleeping. Consume, vote Tory, that kind of stuff. It's the emergency services have access to it because they're the ones that suddenly have to respond to something.
Yeah,
so
and they'll probably be the ones that trigger it anyway.
So if there's a localised emergency, they're the ones that are going to suddenly hit the...
I'd like to know that there's something's going on in the area.
So it's an alert system. Yes, it is a government emergency alert system, but it's used by the government, any government that is going to be in, because we're not talking about the current Tory government. If Labour win the next election, which they probably will, then
This is not a political podcast.
It's not, but they probably will. Then that's my prediction. Then they'll be the government. Or any party that is the government in charge. It's kind of like this alert system is going to be there regardless of who the government is, and it's there for the emergency services to alert people to these events. So anyway, I had this I don't trust the government, which was an odd one. Another one that said the government should go and jump off a cliff.
All of them collectively.
It could be like something from Doctor
What
Who.
that's quite got to do with the emergency alert system, I don't know.
Technically, government is.
But then again, maybe they'd send out an emergency alert system if the whole of the government was jumping off a cliff. I don't know.
Also, government is more of like a concept. So the concept.
Yeah.
It's not.
The implications of that would be horrific. Like the entire kind
Anarchy.
of government anarchy. Yeah.
Yeah, another one which is I tell you what, I'll come to there's two more that I've listed down. Start with this one. The fact that I mentioned it briefly before, we don't have many natural disasters in the UK, so why are we bothering with it?
Yeah.
That's like assuming nothing is
Now-
going to ever happen to you.
Now, kind of that's an odd one because I had a bit of feedback from that once that post went up. Other people feedback because I've had friends, they don't live in South Wales now, they've just moved, but literally every year in South Wales, I'd get messages coming through saying, "Oh, the hillside's on fire again."
Yeah.
Yeah, up in Norfolk, the houses are falling off the cliffs there because of sudden, spring high tides. Last year we had the hottest summer in the UK ever. Do you remember? We were doing a geocache podcast, weren't we?
Yeah.
On the hottest day.
Well, there's a
Episode evidence of
flashback right there.
Flashback. We were dying of heat exhaustion, and but what happened that really, as far as I'm aware, hasn't happened before. I mean, yes, we have wildfires on Heather Heaths and places like that, but you had actual urban conurbations in Kent, villages that were suddenly catching fire, houses were going, and that fire was spreading through the houses. Now, if you were in that situation where you were working just down the road, wouldn't you want to get an emergency alert saying,
Of course.
there's a wildfire and it's literally
Heading your way.
and you could you had the opportunity to get back to your house and maybe get stuff out of it or get your pets out of it or whatever. Or maybe you've nipped out to the shops and you suddenly get an alert through saying, "Oh, crap, my house is potentially going to burn down."
So they're coming back with your shopping and realising your house is gone.
So it's not a joke. It's something that when we say we don't have many natural disasters, we do have lots.
It just might not apply to you specifically.
Yeah, you think these disasters occur every year, but if they don't occur to you, maybe you've never paid any attention to them. Do you remember on the south coast there was a stretch of railway that the sea washed out into? The sea broke it all up, and there was a lot of problems. The cliffs were collapsing and things. It happens, but perhaps what we should be thinking about is with global warming, the way it's being told to us all, the potential for natural disasters, as in like last year with the wildfires, surely the risk is getting greater.
Yeah.
Because we're getting more and more bouts of extreme weather that suddenly hit us in one go. Extreme amounts of water from flooding, extreme
Rain.
heat. Exactly. Winds. Therefore, isn't it a good thing to suddenly have, well, actually, that's the wrong term saying suddenly. I'll get back to that. But having an emergency alert system in place when we are potentially looking forward to an increase in coming years of
Yeah.
natural
Well,
disasters.
don't you remember when that wind happened last year and that knocked that tree down the road?
Yes.
Into the road.
Into
and
the
everything.
road and into the roof of
Yeah,
the
that
houses.
was like hit everyone really kind of severely.
I also find that as a weird argument anyway to say that we don't have many. So what's the point of having it?
What's the
Because
point of having it, yeah.
when that alarm went off, I didn't go, oh, I can't wait for the next natural disaster to happen so I can test whether it works or not.
Well, it works.
I went, okay, that's a thing that I have. Doesn't necessarily mean I ever
Yeah.
want to hear it.
Yeah, but again, that comment was about, I don't understand why we need it because we don't have many natural disasters. But again, let's reiterate, it's not just there for natural disasters.
Yeah.
It's there for, potential terrorist attacks, or Buncefield oil depot a few years ago down near Hemel Hempstead.
And that
That
blew up.
exploded.
Yeah.
I think it was the biggest.
Didn't they feel it in France or
Yeah,
something?
it's the biggest explosion since the Second World War
Yeah.
in Europe or something. It was when that went off.
Mad.
Our front door literally rattled while I was having my coffee. I thought it was really windy outside. I went out and it was like dead still. And it was like, it's a bit odd. And then I
Yeah.
put the news on and found out that the oil depot had blown up.
Yes.
But if you lived in that area, then you would suddenly get an alert saying,
Yeah.
Hold tight for a sec.
yeah,
I mean, I don't think they
Get
could
under
have
the table.
preempted it.
No, they could have preempted it, but it could have turned into. I mean, a lot of houses and things. I mean, my sister lives nearby, and car alarms were going off left, right, and centre.
Windows smashing.
Windows smashed
Yeah.
in, things like that. There could still, if say for example you got an oil depot like that, and it's got, say it's got 8 oil silos, and 2 have exploded, then you could have the potential for the rest
Yeah.
to go up. So to have an early warning saying, this has occurred,
This is what's happened.
we
yeah.
want you to evacuate the area just in case. There you go.
Will the
So it kind of negates it just being for natural disasters.
yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Will the emergency alert actually specify what's happening, or will it just be a sort of generic one that says something bad is happening?
I'm assuming that it would have. I wouldn't. Well, I don't know. I suppose it wouldn't just be one alert, would it? If you had an alert, it might be if there is serious risk to life that you'll get an alert, an initial alert, which might have some information.
Yeah.
And then you'll get a further alert with more information.
Say where to go or
And
something.
if they were saying we need to evacuate people out of this area, they'd probably bang that through
Like
to,
a
you know,
immediate evacuation signal
Yeah.
or something.
until they are sure that as many people have received it than they
Yeah.
wish. This is if you just set it off once, and somebody goes, "Oh, I'm paying attention to that,"
Yeah.
and then it goes off again, then it goes off again. You
Yeah.
got to get people's attention.
No, seriously, get out.
You really need to go now. So
We're talking to you, Darren. Get out.
get out what you can. Don't forget to take Fluffy with you. So in that situation, I think this is a great thing. So natural disasters, it's not just for natural disasters. But then this leads me on to my final one on this, and this is this one was off of the news when they were interviewing people about it. There was an old age pension couple sitting on a bench, and the gentleman said, "So why have they just instigated it now? What aren't they telling us? What are they expecting is going to happen?
The
Right.
nukes.
The nukes are going to start falling." And that kind of reflected one other comment that I had, which was, why has it suddenly been put into place?
Yeah, I did see a lot of people say, well, they're saying it's for natural disasters, but really it's for when the nukes drop. But
Right, okay. The main thrust of that was, why have they suddenly decided to implement this? Well, actually, if you research it, which I have, they started to, as I said before, we're not the only country that has this system.
yeah,
Other countries have had it in place for a long time. The UK government decided
as
to...
always, we're behind everyone.
UK government has decided to do this, and they've basically been implementing it since 2014.
Yeah,
They started testing in
it's
2014,
almost 10 years. Then.
and it's been progressively, networks have changed, things have happened, they've been testing it, and it's only now gone fully live. And in fact, I think it's kind of been delayed recently because I've been posting up about it. It should be live. Oh no, it's been stalled again.
So do you think it's just bad timing
I think
with everything that's happening?
Well, obviously the
I mean, I'd prefer to have it now than
Yeah.
too late.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is they were already in the process of putting this into place long before Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's obviously been felt that we needed some kind of national early warning system for natural disasters, terrorist attacks, and dare I say, if the bomb drops. You know?
Or meteors.
But of course, people are suddenly going to jump on that bandwagon about what if the bomb drops.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I think that's where we're going to move on to next about
Part 2 of the podcast.
Part 2. I said to you guys that when I was growing up in the 70s, during the Cold War, we did have an early warning system
Yes.
of sorts.
Yes.
So let me just explain that first. We didn't have mobile phones. There was no way that you could get a blanket signal out to everybody.
Yeah.
So what do you think we had?
TV.
Would
TV.
it, would it
Radio.
just be a big speaker?
Emergency.
What we had was sirens.
Yeah, the emergency.
Yeah.
The
There
emergency
you go.
alarm
Yeah.
sirens.
Like an air raid siren.
During the
type
Cold
thing.
War, we had an early warning system that was set up, and it had these little mini bunkers. You can look this up on the internet for if you want to do deeper research about it. But they had like mini bunkers all over the UK that were manned in order to give us that, back in the day, 4-minute warning of an imminent nuclear strike. And if there was a threat of nuclear strike, then the sirens would go off. And that's when we were given out the Protect and Survive leaflet, which was a bit of a joke, really. Telling you to take your doors off and go to the centre of your home.
There you go. There's a
Nailed
topic
them to
for
the
another podcast.
Yeah, well, we'll have to do that. What to do in the...
I'd actually really like to do a Protect and Survive. Maybe if we watch the whole...
Yep.
Because I'll get to it a bit later, but
Yeah.
I would, write that down. Whoever,
We'll do one on Protect and Survive.
the
But anyway,
producer who plans these podcasts.
this, I'm going to play it now. This was what I was used to. And I say I was used to it because they used to test the sirens once in a while. And as a young person, those sirens were both eerie but also really terrifying.
I can imagine, yeah.
But they used to set them off. So I'm going to just play this, all right?
Don't panic, anyone.
If we are attacked by nuclear weapons, these are the warning sounds you must recognize. First, the attack warning. If an attack is expected, the sirens will sound a rising and falling note like this.
So
That was absolutely horrible.
But so when people are complaining that they don't trust the government because their alarm's going off on their phone, if that starts playing,
You
and
ain't got no choice on that.
I'd just be out in the back garden,
yeah,
and suddenly you'd hear them just basically testing these sirens
Yeah.
off across the valley.
Would you know that it was a test? Would you get informed that it was a test, or would it
No,
just
we
be
didn't get-
spontaneous?
we didn't get any kind of notification they were doing a test.
On your
But what they
mobile.
would do-
On your mobile? No,
on your,
you
on
didn't
your,
have
on
it.
your iPad it says.
what I remember is them just setting it off so it was, and it just stay on,
Right.
and then it'd go off, and you'd all be going, "What the hell's that about?"
Should we be?
And then
Should I be running yet?
Yeah, but that was it.
Wow.
It's almost like they just tested it,
Would
make
they
sure
have-
they're working.
Would they have been sort of older World War II ones? Because they do sound a little bit sort of.
Yeah, there's kind of like a conch shell. Do you know
Yeah.
the type of ones?
Yeah.
Don't they have like a crank handle on them?
Oh, you can get those manual operated ones. These, I think, were on a lot of buildings. I'm sure Glenn Sharp, who came in to do the Bigfoot
Friend of the
one,
show.
yeah, friend of the show,
And the aliens.
Yeah, and aliens. I'm sure he mentioned about them being in Stevenage, and him hearing them going off when he was a kid. But that was a terrifying sound.
Yeah.
Now you're living,
Even now, that's a creepy sound.
you're living with this cloud,
Yeah.
forgive the analogy, over your head, where we were so on a knife edge of nuclear war, and you'd hear these sirens being tested, and you'd be given out the Protect and Survive leaflet, and then those public information films were shown on the television, saying that if
Yeah.
you hear this
Yeah.
sound, I think even Frankie Goes to Hollywood used that voice in Two Tribes Go to War.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and it's kind of, oh man, it was,
It is very
horrible.
eerie. The whole Protect and Survive
you know,
sort of thing
And-
is so eerie.
you know, so although this current system was implemented way before the current conflicts that are happening, yes, obviously I assume that it is there to give us early warning if there was a potential nuclear strike.
Yes.
And to that end, we gave you some homework, didn't we?
Oh God.
You've
Okay,
been
so
looking forward to this, haven't you?
We've been looking forward to this. We gave Jack some homework because, for those of you who are listening, there's a particular cartoon, what do you call it?
Yeah,
Called When the Wind Blows.
yeah.
And
yeah.
I'd say a lot of people are probably familiar with that one.
Yes.
And I watched it when I was a kid, and it was very poignant at the time.
Yes.
You watched it, Jack, obviously, and then you lent it so I could show it to
It was
Zach.
done by the same artist who did the Snowman.
Raymond Briggs.
Raymond Briggs. And so if you like the Snowman, when I watch the Snowman, you can watch the Snowman, you can't
What-
get...
I mean,
Check out Where the Wind Blows.
Even the
check-
Snowman's got a very quite bleak ending anyway.
yeah, well, the
I think
Snowman-
Raymond Briggs was just.
Well, I
sort
won't
of-
spoil
sort
the
of-
end of the Snowman. But
So
but that's that. But there was another film
yeah,
when I was a kid that came out that was so bleak, and it was shown in schools, I believe, as well.
Wow.
And it was called Threads.
yes,
And Zach's watched it with me,
Oh, yeah.
but you hadn't seen it.
Yes.
So before this podcast,
So-
we gave it to you
yeah,
as your homework, and this is where we're taking it from now.
yes. So I was going to say a little bit of background. At the end of the last podcast, after our sort of recording session, we always talk about what the next subject's going to be, and we obviously discussed a little bit about prepping, and it sort of got on to nuclear war. And I mentioned that I'd not seen Threads. I'd heard of it. I'll be honest, I thought it was like a TV show, like an actual series.
Yeah.
Didn't realise it was a film. You very kindly,
Kindly.
Kindly. You
were very, very generous.
we had a message from Jack, and he told us about how he'd had a really nice
I had a really
day.
nice day,
And
yeah.
he had a
It was
really
full
nice
of
day.
positivity.
Fantastic. And then it finished off with one line saying, and then I watched Threads.
And then I watched Threads.
Oh dear. It ruined your day completely.
So you let me the Blu-ray just so I
Yep.
could watch it in like
Digitally
proper
remastered, by
high
the way.
definition, get all the detail.
All the
yeah.
detail.
So
Maybe we should explain kind of what it's about.
I'll get onto that.
Okay.
There's a few films that have kind of like sort of war films like that have affected me a little bit. Threads is one of them. When the Wind Blows, as we mentioned, 1986, directed by Jimmy T. Murakami. So it's a British animated film. I actually have the BFI release, and if
Okay.
you get that,
British Film Institute.
yes, if you get that release, there's a second disc which has the whole Protect and Survive.
I believe, I think Threads, the disc we gave you as well, has got it on there.
I didn't go into that.
You,
I'd had
you were
enough.
too traumatised.
I'd had enough. I didn't really fancy going through the special features.
Traumatizing features, more like.
Yeah. Special traumatising features.
The other one is Come and See, which is from 1985,
Mm-hmm.
which is a Soviet anti-war film. Very bleak, very depressing. Probably never going to watch it ever again. I've got the Criterion release, but yeah. Which was from 1985. When the Wind Blows was 1986,
Uh-huh.
and then Threads was 1984. So all of these films have all
Yep.
come out within that period of time which you were talking about. So Threads was directed by Mick Jackson, written by Barry Hines, and it's a British TV film, which I found out. Very, very bleak is probably the best way I can describe it. As I mentioned with those other films, few films have sort of affected me like that.
Did you sleep?
I did. Just because I'd been to work, I was tired. But if that was
You were just
any other day,
shivering in fear and you got tired.
It's
All that fallout.
because he took the door off his
Yeah.
bedroom and made a temporary shelter to sleep in.
I think what I was saying a little bit about before we started recording is it's almost got this sort of documentary feel
Yeah,
to
yeah,
it.
definitely, definitely.
It's just under 2 hours, and there's a few sort of intersecting moments which have like a documentary style narration, and it's almost describing like what happened, almost as if it's like a documentary.
Yep.
But yes, very.
I mean, the premise of the film
premise
is
of
it
the film.
starts before nuclear attack.
Yes.
It is in the time of protect and survive,
Yeah.
and characters within the movie act upon that leaflet, don't they?
Yeah. So there's a
And
moment.
realise.
There's like a family. I think it's a mum and dad, and then a daughter, and you sort of follow two families.
Yeah.
The other family has a son, and the
Yep.
son and daughter are having a baby. So it's kind of just very much like just everyday life.
Yeah.
But you start to see like these, as you say, protect and survive, and some of the TV messages. There's sort of constant news stories in the background when they're sitting in the pub.
And basically waiting for that early warning.
Yes.
Didn't they have a group of like politicians in a bunker somewhere?
Yeah.
That
So
was the
there's
local council.
Yeah.
Which I found particularly interesting.
Yeah.
So just talk about the families. There's a moment where the dad, I think of the daughter, has a protect and survive leaflet on the table, and the family are just getting ready for their day and breakfast and everything. And he's really studying this protect and survive. And I think a couple of scenes later, you see him sort of unscrewing the door and starting to put the door against the wall. So they obviously did their research in the protect and survive thing that was happening at the same time. You mentioned I think they called him like the war. I can't remember what they call him, but he's got a title. He's basically one of the councillors for Sheffield.
Yeah.
It's set in Sheffield.
What I found interesting about that is because obviously it's based on fact.
Yeah.
What if this happened? And that basically tells you that it doesn't matter where you live, but your local council, there are members of the council, and obviously council members change, but as those council members change, then other council members would take over their positions, but a position they probably wouldn't have even expected they'd get is the fact that they've suddenly got to be in control of if there is a huge disaster, and in this instance, a nuclear attack, that they're suddenly in charge
and
of organising it.
There's a really...
Well, not organising the attack, organising the... What the after effects...
What to do.
What to do.
There's a really sort of like sinister moment where he's at his desk in his office, and he puts the phone down, and then he opens his drawer. There's two black folders in the drawer. One of them says, I think it's like War Book Volume 1. And he takes that out, and underneath is War Book Volume 2. So you need to start reading that quick.
And, I mean, and it's been a while since I've watched this movie, but then he starts to have to ring other councillors because he has to get his team together. And all these people never, ever, ever expect this is ever going to happen.
And the narration, like the documentary style narration says, a lot of these people are learning this on the job. They'd never trained for this scenario.
No, they're just literally, you're being grabbed and told you got to do this.
And there's a moment he talks to his secretary, and she says like, "Oh, I'll talk to you later." And he begins to put his photographs in his briefcase. And look at his briefcase. I'm like, okay, so that's a sign that he's not coming back to the office.
He knows exactly what's going on at this point.
But there is that moment. It's probably, I think it's about 40 minutes in, so there's quite a bit of build up, and then suddenly you hear the alarm, and then there's the bang. And then after that it's just sadness.
But
a bang followed by sadness.
I think it takes the title threads. It's because of all the threads that interconnect for this network.
You see the sort of ripple effect. Really, it's really
But again, for those people who maybe think that if you were struck by a nuclear attack and survived through it, that the old world is now gone and we're now in a new world. But no, there are plans in place by your local authority, by central government, these people that have gone into their bunkers to round people up, put them into work parties, and if you don't work, you don't get fed. There is literally, these are real things that are real. If you think you're going to come out of it and say, okay, right now,
Mad Max,
I'm going to
rule the wasteland.
Exactly.
Lord Humongous.
If there is anybody alive who is part of that network, they are just going to try and organise anybody that's still surviving into almost forced labour camps.
Semblance of like organisation.
And again, it comes down to that. If you've got any food stocks or anything,
it goes into the pool.
It goes into the pool, you know, and you get done if you are seen to be hoarding.
If you're prepping.
If you're a prepper, then you've got to really watch yourself at that point.
There's a moment where they eat a sheep or something. They find a dead sheep and they're like, "Is the meat safe to eat?"
Guess you'll find out.
Yeah, and then next scene they're tucking into it.
But it's a real sheep. It's a real sheep.
I mean, that's what they used to do back in those old 70s programs and films. They used real
actual
things.
animals.
Yeah.
You know, because like in Survivors, they did that, didn't they?
Yeah, rabbits,
the
things like
dogs
that.
running around,
An elephant at one point, but they didn't eat the
they
elephant.
didn't eat the elephant, but that was interesting. They actually put an elephant in it.
Yeah.
There was a very interesting moment. I said this before the podcast, but I don't think there's a perfect time to watch Threads.
No.
But I certainly watched it at a...
Don't watch it after a nuclear strike if you have the facility to do that.
Yeah, probably not
That's
the
not
best
going to
sort of-
cheer you up at all.
Yeah, no. Just relive the whole thing again.
Yeah. There's not enough beanbags in dark rooms that are going to get you through that.
I definitely think it should be kind of broadcast on like a yearly basis on the TV.
I don't think
Can
there's
you
a-
imagine if you broadcast something like Threads now?
No.
The amount of trigger warnings that would have to be on it.
It'd be great. I'd
The
enjoy
amount
it
of
so much.
complaints people would. You wouldn't know. It would-
Maybe
So-
if they have a setting so they can turn it off.
yes, like the emergency alert system.
It's just called the off button on the
I can
remote.
deactivate it.
So,
I know,
yeah, so-
people-
You don't have to watch it.
yeah,
So
But I would
think-
recommend it.
I don't think there's a perfect time to watch Threads, but I watched it at a time where obviously we've got these emergency alerts system happening. And I did notice a lot of kind of similarities between what's happening now.
yeah.
And one of the sort of...
That is scary.
Yeah, definitely. One of the more sort of minor scenes which stuck out was there's a scene just before the explosion. Everyone's sort of panic buying, which we've seen a lot recently with the pandemic. There's an old lady character who's got like a basket full of shopping.
Yep.
And she takes it to the counter and he starts scanning them through. And she sees the price of all the food and she goes, I'd rather starve. And
Oh, at this point, had they bumped the price up because people
yeah,
were
so the
panic
money,
buying?
so everything's gone up in price because obviously
People are panic buying.
Panic
so
buying.
they're making money out of it.
yeah. And she goes, well, I'd rather starve than pay that for that shopping.
All right then.
And then she disappears, and then within the next 10 minutes, everything's flat.
Everything's gone.
And there's a moment that everyone's running out of the shop with their trolleys, and he's like, "You've not paid for that. You've not paid for any of that." As if money's actually going to matter.
Suddenly
At all.
Money-
doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
And even I suppose that's even more prevalent now with like lack of cash. We don't really use cash much anymore.
It's all digital.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those prepper subjects about you'll read people that are prepping and they prep for financial collapse. What if the society has a major financial collapse, and so part of their prep is they buy gold and silver,
Right.
because as far as they're concerned, that gold and silver will always be worth something to trade.
Yeah.
Now, if you are in a situation like, say, the Great Depression,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where everything's worthless.
everything's worthless, but society comes back,
Yeah.
then if you have got a store of gold and silver, then yeah, I can see how
Yeah.
you haven't got it into
It's a bit of a
paper
gamble.
money. Gamble. But if you're talking about a scenario where society is completely collapsed,
Ain't coming back anytime
in
soon.
in this scenario with Threads, it's after a nuclear strike.
And it doesn't come back.
If you come and say, I've got a piece of gold, can I have a tin of beans? I'm just going to say no.
Food is current. I can't eat gold.
What the hell do I want that for? It's
Food-
absolutely worthless.
Food will become the currency, won't it?
Food, medical supplies.
Yeah.
If
I
you've
think
got
we
painkillers,
touched on this on the other prepping episodes.
alcohol,
Yeah.
things like that. Food, alcohol, medicines. Anything like that would be a currency.
Yeah.
Gold and silver, can't see it myself, but there you go.
So yeah, my summary of Threads is I'll probably never watch it ever again.
Oh,
There's
One day, Jack.
yeah.
Okay, hopefully the bomb won't drop,
Thanks. Yeah.
and we'll never hear the emergency
Yeah.
alert system ever go off again.
don't jinx it.
But one day you might have children of your own,
You can relive this
and you can
experience.
relive this experience by making them watch it.
Great. Back in my day.
Exactly.
Don't worry, we can lend him Survivors next.
I want to pass on my trauma to you.
This is what I had to sit through to do a podcast back in 2023.
As they're crying.
He can borrow Survivors next.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very bleak. I would probably recommend if you have an interest
It doesn't
in
end
this
on
sort
a
of
high,
subject.
does
It doesn't. No. Don't expect a happy ending.
No, not at all.
No spoilers, by the way.
No.
But I would recommend it if you're interested in kind of the history of the Cold War and nuclear
Yeah,
war. And
I
that
think
sort of
if you're interested to know about the period that I lived
it's a
through,
very good window into that era.
it is a very good period because I was scared.
Yeah.
I-
Would you have been about me and Zach's age-ish?
Probably
A bit younger.
yeah, a bit younger than you guys,
Yeah.
probably about 17, 18.
But old enough to know
Yeah.
that it could be a problem.
But you literally were living in fear, and it did rattle around in my head. And I was into my bushcraft and survival back since I was a kid. So that wasn't something that stemmed from this. The idea of prepping probably did.
Yeah.
Because, this was and then of course what happened is not just Threads, but you had, at the time you started to get a lot of post-apocalyptic movies that were coming out. Yeah. And so many
good stuff.
So many 80s post-apocalyptic movies where you think, like you said, I shall be the king of the wasteland or whatever.
Lord Humongous.
And of course it plays on the actual reality of what's going on at the time.
Yeah.
And we all lived with this cloud. Now, a lot of people, I dare say, just went through their everyday life not thinking about it. But
Blissful ignorance.
Blissful ignorance. But if you were a person that did think about it, you did watch When the Wind Blows, Threads, read your Protect and Survive leaflet, then, of course it was enough for you to go, crap. This literally could happen tomorrow. Will I go to bed tonight and will I wake up tomorrow?
And I think that's the character of the dad in Threads when he's watching the TV and there's a news report saying that like tensions are building and there could be something bad. And everyone's walking in front of the TV and he's trying to really listen to what's going on, but they're more concerned about
the day-to-day,
having their friends over for dinner and things. It's like you put that into perspective. Especially after what happens.
And I think
it's a very big comment on society.
I think as well as being a window of that time, as you said, it has a hell of a lot of reflection of
so many.
And
it's so relevant.
So I think that if you wanted to watch something just to to experience what it could be like.
Yes, definitely.
If it happened now, then it's a very good kind of representation, even
really
though
is,
it's a terrifying representation.
I think it has to.
It doesn't pull any punches.
Not at all.
There is no softly. They're not nice to anybody.
Yeah.
There's no.
There's no reset button or anything. It's just
nobody comes out of it well.
There's no deep emotional heart-to-heart get-together moments between people, increasing the drama of the situation. It's just the real things happening on screen.
At the end of it, there's no kind of like, they survived at the end type of thing. It's just, I'm not even going to talk about the ending.
No.
It is terrifying.
It may have been worse to go out in the initial strike.
Well, there's a subject that I would cover at some point.
Yeah.
I think we should do a Protect and Survive podcast. Maybe
so.
Talk about the actual Protect and Survive.
Well, the prepping podcasts are doing really, really well, and they're very, very popular.
Thank you very much for listening to them.
Yes, thank you so much.
Maybe we could watch it through, and then maybe discuss about what we sort of. Because I know it's quite long. There's a lot of different segments.
There's a lot of hilarious. I hated the sound of the fallout.
Beep, 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 beep. We'll have to include that in the podcast.
That's horrible. But so that was the early warning system I grew up with, and the threat of imminent nuclear war.
Yes.
And how horrendous the fear was that was going to be a thing. And it really was.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's when Putin invaded Ukraine and started saying, I'm quite happy to push the button. All those dark emotions from my younger years that I've never thought about, thought was gone out of my life.
Yeah.
Here I am in my late 50s, and it's like a door opened and it all came flooding back, and it's like horrible.
It puts a lot of things into perspective.
But to think that there is somebody out there
who is willing to do that,
who's willing and
capable, ruin so many lives.
Just by that, don't go there.
I've always had an interest in like World War II history and even like a bit of the Cold War. I never thought I would get to a point where I genuinely fear that could happen.
I wouldn't want this.
You thought it was a thing of the past.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it's in the history.
Increasingly relevant.
We are in the 21st century. We should be beyond this.
Yes, exactly.
And suddenly we find ourselves thrown back into this.
And I never thought I'd be able to sympathise with how you felt back in the 80s.
I would say originally it would have been very difficult for either of you to kind of even try and get a grasp of what that would like. And now, sadly, you're living in
relevant.
And I think as well, the kind of big difference is things like the internet, where people can spread misinformation, fear.
We've been talking about that.
They can spread their own theories and everything.
Exactly.
That just mounts onto everyone's head as well.
It puts the pressure on your shoulders even more if you're going to read that kind of stuff.
Sometimes you can't even avoid it.
You can't avoid it. But if you're one of these people that gets hooked and you keep reading into this stuff,
it can really mess you up.
Yeah, definitely.
Mess you up totally. And that's when you have strange opinions. Because I'm a firm believer that as long as you start getting the general populace to distrust the experts in subjects, then you can manipulate them really easily with fake news. When that starts to happen, which it already has, then you're on a slippery slope.
A rocky road.
Because once you distrust people, the experts in subjects,
who are you going to trust?
Who are trying to help you.
then you're going to start, when you start believing in the snake oil peddlers, that's it. And then you don't know which way to turn.
Oh no, we're going to have to do another conspiracy
But anyway,
theories episode now.
Anyway, back to the main subject. The government emergency alert system, I think it's a good idea. To quote other people, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
I think you've nailed my head right there.
And I think we should leave it there. I don't think there's any government conspiracies. There was one other thing that popped up. One person did say they were turning it off because they wanted to know who was behind it making all the money.
Right.
But as much as my research can go, I can't see that this emergency alert system has got anything to do with anybody making loads of money. Or how that's meant to work.
I didn't give across my bank details.
No. So as far as I'm aware, it's an emergency alert system which is funded by government taxpayers' money, and it's there for everybody's benefit if it needs to be used.
And hopefully we'll never hear it.
Yeah, hopefully we'll never use, and it'll just be sitting there as a dormant system with like a bat phone.
Yeah.
I wonder if there is a big red phone with one button on it.
What, for Batman?
Yeah, for Batman. That's maybe where we should end this. Just think of that somebody is being employed to sit in the Batcave next to that phone. At last, emergency alert system. Boom.
Cool.
Wait,
Kilmer.
you happy about that?
I don't know. Can I get the job? I'm on the job.
I mean, Michael Keaton's coming back as Batman.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. But that's a different subject altogether.
Yes. That's 2 podcasts now. We've ended on a bit of a downer.
No,
I think we need to.
No, on the
Next episode, we need to have a fun, a happy
on
podcast.
the positive side, on this one, the positive side is this emergency alert system is there to hopefully save lives.
It's a positive thing.
Yes,
It's a
definitely.
positive thing,
100%.
not a deep conspiracy to add to all the rest of it.
Okie dokie. So
Right, okay.
that brings us back to Word of the Week.
Oh, it's word of the week.
Word of the
time.
week.
You go straight into this. Okay, word of the week. Are we going to
Do we do
go
it again?
operatic with this one? Word of the week. Word of the week.
Anyway, the Word of the Week
Is
was
nipple.
nabble.
Nabble, not
Nabble.
nipple. Oh, he's back to his nipples
There were
again.
bees, not peas.
Nabble.
Nipple.
Nabble.
Stop it, you.
Bring me a nabble.
What does nabble mean?
Nabble.
Stop it, you. Stop it.
I want a nabble. I don't know, nabble. I don't know, a nabble.
I feel like it's like something like a chit chat between friends. You have
Having-
a nabble.
Having a nabble.
It's like a
Oh yes, or maybe if you're a gossip,
yeah.
you're gossiping, you're nabbling.
If you nabble about someone, you're
Yeah.
talking about them behind
Behind the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. We'll go with that.
Okie dokie.
It's gossiping.
Okay. So, nabble is to gnaw. A stronger word than nibble.
Oh, okay.
So if
I
you
wasn't far off.
nibble of a nipple.
Everyone was laughing at me when I said nipple, but I was actually saying nibble the whole time.
There was a mispronunciation, okay?
Nibble. So you're having a slightly stronger nibble
It's
if you're
to
having
gnaw
if you're having a
something.
nabble.
Right.
So you're nabbling at a bone.
Yes. So that was nabble. And Word of the
Stop
Week.
nabbling my bone.
Nabbling it on some raw sheep.
Yes, in the wasteland.
I was going to bring that up.
So
I was
we're in the
gonna bring it up.
wasteland and we're going to have a nabble. You nibble, I'll nabble. And you'll gnaw. There's 3 of us. Who's nibble, nabble, or gnaw? I don't want to be nibble.
I'll be nipple.
I'll be nabble.
Did you say nipple again?
You're gnaw.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes. That's a gnawing goodbye from Zach.
That's a nabbling goodbye from Buzz.
It's a sad goodbye from Jack.
Oh, not even a nibble.
No, not this time.
Okay.
You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Check out the Zak Wylde Productions social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or visit the Zak Wylde Productions website at www.zakwyldeproductions.com. Please get in contact, we'd love to find out how you're listening to us. So get in touch in the comments and don't forget to check out Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon to become an official ZWP patron today.